Hey all, welcome to Parker's Reefs. On today's episode, we're going to chat to Dave, the owner of Deer Park Aquarium, about some of the updates as he hits the 1 year mark in the Dream Reef store. And also, we're going to take the opportunity to chat to him about his favorite fish and corals that are in stock right now. All right, thank you for joining me on yet another episode of Parker's Reefs. And as touched on in the intro, it has been some time since we've headed up the highway to Deer Park Aquarium and had a chat to Dave, the store owner there, about how things are going with his brand new store as it approaches the 1 year mark. Have a chat about some of the changes, some of the things that are about to happen in the store, and of course, take the opportunity in between deliveries of new stock for the weekend to have a chat to Dave about some of his favorite fish and of course some of his favorite corals in store before I do a full lap and we take a look at absolutely everything that is in stock. I always love to see what Dave, someone who sees more stock than pretty much anyone, constantly getting new deliveries in and selling stock out the door, what fish and coral grabs his attention, because that's something that always intrigues me. So without any further ado, let's roll the footage and have a look at the updates at Deer Park Aquarium. Hey Dave, thought it would be well and truly time for an update on the brand new Deer Park Aquarium that is nearing towards the 1 year mark now.
Just about 8 weeks to go.
About 8 weeks to go now. I imagine in that year everything's been smooth sailing and you're living the dream right now, yeah?
That's been the worst luck of my life, but take the bad luck side of things out and we're doing well. We're progressing really well, just slower than we'd like.
Nah, the shop's really progressing well and I thought it was well and truly overdue for a little bit of an update and see what's happening and of course get your opinion on some of the stock that you've got in at the moment. But before we get into the wet room, can you take us around some of the updates you've got in the dry side of things?
Sure, we'll start at the start. We're clearing out some of the old stock because we're finally getting around to just fine tuning what's selling for us, readjust the shelves so there's less bulk on the shelves, and a lot of the old stock from the last shop. We've always got plenty of foam boxes, free if anyone can take them off our hands, take the lot, like sooner the better.
Curse of the local fish shop, always plenty of foam boxes.
First major change is we've decided to turn the office into a hardscape room.
Yeah, cool.
So you got Freshwater on one side, still a work in progress. And then we have our sort of saltwater side. We've got our different rocks. Love the Carib Sea life rocks. Very versatile rock there. We've got a heap of sand there. This will become a little aquascaping station, so there'll be a built-in scale and some measurements so people can work within a tank size with the rock and stuff here. We can weigh it up and price it as we go. And we'll have some little knickknacks and stuff on the wall, little sort of hang sale things, glues, putties, that sort of stuff.
Nice. And I do like you've got a little Paladarium on the go here. That's something that's been pretty popular in store of late.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a current craze, but simple, cheap, effective, easy to maintain, and just a huge visual impact. So
nice.
Doing a few of those at the moment.
Beautiful.
Coming through here, the main wall hasn't really changed much. Stock itself is sort of fine-tuning as we go, but that's pretty much set and forget now. Down the guts, we've got some tanks. We've got our salt, just the bulky goods.
Very good.
It's a bit foggy at the moment because we let the humidity get a bit high last night, but new freezer.
New freezer, double the holding
double
capacity.
the size, and we'll be getting some sign writing and stuff done on the windows there to show off the ingredients of the product, the pricing, multi-buys, things like that.
Very nice.
Counter's pretty much the same story. We haven't really changed too much, just changing what stock's going to stay in there long term. We are going over to Square for our register, so we've got a nice, pretty fancy register there. We'll get rid of the computer system and make this all nice and clean and tidy as we go.
Very nice. And then I noticed as we hit the first bit of sort of livestock, you've got, we were talking before about Paladariums, and you've got a pretty cool looking Paladarium in here.
Yeah, so this is a 3 foot by 3 foot Exoterra, and we've just scaped it out as a Paladarium. I'm going to put an axolotl on the bottom for my daughter, and
Incredible.
then I'm looking into what animals we can get in Australia for the top. I don't want frogs, they're loud. I was looking at geckos, maybe some sort of crab species or something like that. But yeah, we're just trying to work out what the collectors are able to get, something that's a bit more unusual, and we'll populate with those.
Different. Now, this system hasn't actually been running all that long, has it?
Still quite new. It's probably, I don't know, 2.5, 3 months with the plants in there.
Yeah, wow.
So the mosses are only just starting to come back to life now. They sort of die off a little bit and then they spring back up. So you see there's some sort of dead looking moss there, but
Yep,
then in a
yep.
week or two's time, it'll start to green up and reproduce.
Yeah, crazy. And this tank's actually running quite a bit of AI equipment on it from the, well, I was going to say the marine world, but familiar to people in the marine world.
Yeah, the AI blades, I'm trying not to blind the camera. This is the freshwater model, so it's silver.
Yep.
We run a lot of the marine ones as well, but to be honest, it's been the biggest step in affordable LED lighting that we've found in years.
Yeah.
They're cheap, they don't run huge amounts of power, they're still fully programmable, and they just pack a punch. The power values out of them is incredible for their price and their wattage.
And the colour too, even on this freshwater variant, this tank looks beautiful.
It's a nice natural colour, and we've just got it on a stock setting right now too. We can tweak those colours even more, but the stock setting at 80% is working well. The plants have all tripled in size since going in there.
Always a good sign. And you've got a little bit of a custom-made sort of sump, for lack of better words, in the back there with a AI access pump, bringing that water up to create that waterfall.
So there's a waterfall here through the rockwork. Just use the tannins, do all the bark and stuff that we use. Going to leach tannins for a couple of months, and that's the reason it's still here. We just want to get all that colour out of it. The water then sucks through the base of the waterfall through a heap of sponges, and then there's an Axis AI 40 in the back there, and we can control that to have a smaller or a larger cascading waterfall. We've got the rocks off the top at the moment, so that's all exposed, but once they're on, it actually creates more of a cascading feature.
Beautiful.
And that's controllable, so we can have it quieter, louder, more vicious, but it can also be turned off at night, so you're not dealing with the water noise running while you're trying to sleep.
Yeah, very nice. And then, of course, you've got the misters on here too, just to give the plants
Yep.
all the water they need so they don't dry out from the powerful AI blade. But I know this is a saltwater channel, but this Paladarium here gets so much interest because it is right at the entrance here, and understandably, it looks incredible. So I can see why a lot of people are interested in it, and it's not a crazy expensive setup either.
No, you could do this whole tank for less than a 60-litre nano in salt water, so.
Yeah, super interesting. Very good. Oh, well, let's keep the good times rolling. Speaking of tanks and marine side of things, I can't help but notice this massive cade behind you here. This is not just a off-the-shelf cade that you got for a customer here?
So this is a custom 7-foot peninsula. We're building a job for a client at the moment. So the tank itself is basically just the standard peninsula tank, just an extra foot longer.
Yep.
So it's longer than they sort of make standard. We've also got the polycarbonate jump lids to go in with that one.
Yeah, the cade's brand new feature.
And then the cabinet itself is where most of the changes occur. So we've got a division in the tank itself, the cabinet. We've got just a straightforward, straight through sump, which we're going to deck out with some acrylic work. But this division here allows us to put a giant Pentair. We'll probably put an 80-watt Pentair UV sterilizer in there.
Okay.
And it'll lay down the bottom of this section and just allow for it to be out of the way but still fully enclosed in the tank. Being a peninsula, you don't want any external equipment.
Definitely.
And then once that's in there, we'll wrap that with an acrylic box so we can still use the sides here for some shelving, dosing pumps, all that sort of gear.
Making the best even better by fully customizing out this cade. And as you say, the peninsulas normally have the racetrack sump in here, which you have access to from all three sides.
Yeah, and it takes up the entire sump, but doesn't leave much room for the bulk of your equipment.
Yeah, definitely. And if you want to run a big UV, you've then got to find a spot to put it. So this is a very clever way of doing it.
All the cades come with the big sort of dry goods section, but the amount of equipment that we're putting on this tank, we need a bit extra space for that. And just the UV itself, if you were to bolt it up in the top of the sump itself, the amount of room it takes up, it's going to be awkward getting in your roller mats, your protein skimmers and things like that.
Yeah, for sure. No, I'm looking forward to seeing that one come together, and good to know that you're willing to get your hands dirty and make systems like this customized and fit the needs of the customer.
It's a bit of fun and excitement as well.
Yeah, nice.
We have our nano displays for saltwater. They're still very, very young. So we've got the Cade S500. This will be SBS only. It's got a couple other things in there at the moment just while it comes to life, and it's an absolute mess, but we've now got the coral and algae growing out of control, so we're going to give this a bit of a revamp in the next couple of weeks, deck it out with SBS and let it grow.
Nice.
That's just your stock standard, off the shelf, the S500.
Yes.
We've then paired that with 2 caddies. So that way we get to show off the S500, the caddy and the Nano 400.
Nice.
But it also gives us somewhere where we can put some advertisement, we can work, and we can store things like our dosing pumps and other equipment down there. And then this is the Nano 400. This will be a softy dominant tank, and it will be closed looped, joined by a dosing pump as an automatic water change to the SBS tank. That way we only have to really clean the glass on both of them. We're not maintaining two separate tanks.
Yeah, nice. So this one here is going to be SBS dominated in the long term, and it's obviously already got a little bit of livestock in there, a couple of clowns that I've had in my soft coral system for a long time, and you can see Annie, the big female there, is still bullying Klaus very nicely, keeping him in check. Any other livestock plans for this system?
Just dominant SBS. So we'll have
SBS,
4 or 5 acro colonies on the top and then some multi colonies down the bottom, and just letting it grow out into just a large sort of acro bommy. I say
cool.
large, but a small acro bommy. Fish wise and stuff, I really don't know yet. It's sort of
to see what comes in and sits around in the shop that would be suitable.
See what'll work with the clown.
Nice. And soft coral system fish wise, same sort of deal. Just see how things pan out, see what comes in.
Yeah, we'll probably go more docile things. So I'm thinking a little mandarin, we'll go like a couple of bangais. There's already a sexy shrimp in there somewhere, so we'll pair that up as well. But yeah, just more docile, gentle fish.
Lovely. And in here, your filtration room still kicking goals?
Yeah, so the filter's paid for itself 1,000 times over. It's one of the best things I've ever done. It's a hot mess at the moment, but it's doing what it needs to do.
It is a working filtration room.
Exactly. We've got the Mastertronic, which is being hooked up onto there finally.
Beautiful.
We've got a 150 watt UV sterilizer attached at the moment, but that'll become 2 very soon.
Nice.
And once we get the second one in, we'll actually plumb it so it's nice and neat and tidy on the wall. At the moment, it's just in there, so it's working.
Yeah, it's a working space at the moment.
But yeah, we can throw 600-700 fish in the system. It doesn't blink an eye. The ammonia goes up 0.1 for an hour or two, back down to 0. Handles it no problems whatsoever.
Exactly what you want in a local fish store that, to be fair, does turn over quite a bit of stock. So when you get a delivery, I think last week's delivery was...
We're not getting 10 or 15 fish,
it was quite a few fish going into the system. So always good to have a filtration system that can handle that huge jump and
definitely
keep things ticking along so your customers are getting nice, healthy fish.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of display tanks, you've got some basic freshwater systems up here along the wall, but you are planning along the back wall here something a bit special?
Yeah, so long-term display tank plan. So we've got those saltwater nanos there. This is going to become 3 aquascaped nanos in freshwater.
Okay.
Paladarium, and then the 3 plastic aquascaped nanos.
Yes.
So just cheap, effective, easy to do freshwater systems.
Yep.
And then the back walls where we want our larger systems to be, I just can't decide. 4 4x2x2 tanks across there would suit the space really well. It would allow us to do 1 of each brand, 1 of each colour cabinet. We can have a high-end goldfish, a high-end hardcore planted tank, a fish-only tank, and an everyday what you usually see at home reef tank. But it's not going to have the presence or wow factor as a large 5,000-6,000 litre tank would. So I don't know if I go for wow factor and something huge, something that just looks epic, or if I go for really well done tanks that are also sales points. We can say, hey, this is this tank and cabinet, it's over there, you can buy it if you like. This is how we got to this setup. So you could use them as sales tools as well as just wet displays.
Right. So you've got a bit over 16 feet of space along here that you can utilise for display tanks.
Bit over 20.
So there's definitely room for 4 4-foot tanks.
4 4-foots, 3 5-foots, 2 6-foots, or 1 4 metre. I don't know.
Okay, well, if anyone watching the video has ideas and would like to recommend something to Dave to put in this space, let him know down in the comments below, because this is obviously for the customers. I mean, this store is effectively your fish tank as well, so you've got to play with it and have fun as well, but realistically it's a business and you want to do it to generate some interest and some potentially some sales, so always good to see what the people want. And just before we jump into the wet room, I noticed you've also made a change over here with the plumbing. You've got that out here now so people can have a good visual of the stock you carry, the bits they may be missing or the parts they weren't aware existed.
So now that we've taken all the messy hardscape goods and put them in the front room, we've got this whole wall to work with. So comes the rain. We're going all our plumbing, sinking plumbing. It's still a work in progress like the entire shop, but We're going to slowly fill all these tubs up, so we'll have all the sinking plumbing up to 40 mil and a couple of odds and ends as well. That'll then eventually be followed by all your dosing line, your John Guest line, and your aquarium hoses, background papers, things like that. And that'll flow into your fragging dosing cabinet and then aquascaping and CO2 cabinet.
Beautiful. Very well laid out indeed.
And from there, you'll have your display tanks, which will also have the driest tanks available around those display tanks. So if you like that tank, the tank's there, everything that's in the tank's above it, we can put that package together and send you home with it.
Works a treat, very nice. All right, well, I think we've got to take advantage of the wet room. We've got to go in there now and see what's happening, and maybe even get an opportunity while we've got you mic'd up to go through some of your favourite or most interesting fish and coral that are in stock at the moment.
Done.
Now, Dave, there's been quite a few changes in the live room and even more changes to come, I believe.
Lots of changes to come. We've started putting our roof up. Still got about 6 panels to go, but that should be done in the next 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah. Now, tell me the idea behind the roof and what's the roof actually constructed of?
So the main purpose of the roof is to insulate this room.
Yes.
So first and foremost, it saves like 8 kilowatts an hour in electricity for heating and cooling the building.
Yes.
Which is, $7, $8 an hour, so it's well and truly worth it. It also blocks out the natural sunlight, so it allows the tank lighting to be the only lighting that you're seeing.
Yeah.
Whereas the natural sunlight is great in the dry room, it washes out all the colours of the tanks, makes everything look really orange or yellow, and
definitely.
you lose that pop.
Definitely do. No, you can tell on the marine side here where you put the roof up so far, the colours instantly popped for the fish and the corals.
It darkens the room enough as well that, it just adds even more contrast to what you're seeing.
Yeah, beautiful.
Its secondary purpose is humidity control.
Okay.
So we keep the humidity in this room. We don't risk our dry good packaging and our roof and our other fittings with water damage.
Of course. You've got a lot of water volume in here and a lot of that water volume in marine water volume as well.
I think your average tank evaporates 20, 25 litres of water a week, and I have
You've got a few tanks. You've got quite a few tanks in here.
It adds up.
Would equate to quite a bit of evaporation, so I can imagine.
Definitely. So we run a dehumidifier in here as well, which keeps the humidity at a good, comfortable level. So it's comfortable for us as well as protecting our dry goods and our fit out, our roof, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Now, this roof panel, this is not your typical sort of ceiling. It's something a bit different.
So it's just sandwich panel. So it's cool room panel. It is a roofing panel for cool room, so it is an off-the-shelf item.
Yep.
But it's usually used for creating big industrial freezers and things like that.
Yeah.
We have a 6 metre span, so there's no centre support whatsoever. It's just supported by the outside edges, and they lock into place so that they don't sag as they go along.
Nice.
And over 6 metres, we've got less than a 10 millimetre sag, so it holds up really well. You can actually put weight above it, but we're not going to be that silly. But it allows us to not impede your view when you're in the shop. So there's no centre supports, no poles that you have to work around.
Okay.
It just seals everything off, and it has a nice finish as well.
It looks fantastic, and to think that this is aluminium and foam obviously gives great insulation properties as it's designed for those fridges and freezers. Relatively easy to work with, click it together.
Literally just stick it up there and click it together like Lego blocks.
Yeah, beautiful.
Weighs 150 kilos a sheet, so it's not the most comfortable getting it above your head, but once it's up there, it's up there.
Nice, very good. Well, I believe you've got some you've got some updates here with the plant system in the middle here, but you've also got some future plans to come here in the fresh side of things.
So the plant system is just very, very temporary. The long-term goal's always been to mimic the coral bays for the freshwater.
Okay.
And what we'll be doing there is doing a stepped design where we have 4 tanks on the top row and 4 on the bottom, so 16 tanks in total. And they'll be roughly 20 centimetres squared. And so you picture 4, 4, 4 and 4, and then repeat it across the entire length there.
Yes.
That'll more than double our freshwater holding capacity.
Wow.
And we can take all these small fish off this wall, pop them into these tanks, and open this wall up for some medium to larger fish as well.
Very nice.
As well as just finishing the aesthetic that we're after.
Yeah, it'll give a really nice visual when someone walks in and the fish room's mirrored. You got marine on this side, fresh on this side, and the layout's exactly the same. It'll look pretty special, I imagine.
And then you got the height there, so the average person in the shop can have a sense of space. You're not walking in and confronted with a big, massive wall of tank.
Yeah, nicely done. Nicely done.
And they'll run the AI blades as well, just to keep everything nice, uniform, and they work. They work well.
They work well indeed. And then over here on what was originally the beta wall, I believe you've made some changes here.
So the beta wall is, we have an off-the-shelf beta rack, display rack from Pet One.
Yes.
With our own custom sump. And originally I wanted to do the split 50-50.
Yes.
And then I decided not to, and now I've decided I'm going to experiment with it. So you have your typical fighter wall,
yes,
and they're all in individual tanks that just drain down to a trough, and then that trough drains down to the sump.
Sure.
And I always wanted to make one for saltwater. So
okay,
all our small invertebrates that get lost in our larger tanks,
yes,
we can then have them in individual tanks with individual price tags, and just easy to grab. You can grab the jar, take it, bag it up, take it home. And things aren't going to get lost or make their way through the plumbing and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, yeah, always good, particularly with some of these smaller, more precious inverts. They can often come with a hefty price tag too, and
definitely,
yeah, watching them disappear into the overflow and through the sumps, not always ideal.
Exactly, and then you've got to try and chase them down. So the experiment at the moment, we did 4 weeks with just water and just 2 rows of tanks,
yes,
and we found that as long as we extended the water down through a bit of airline to
yes,
minimise the splash, the salt creep wasn't bad.
Yeah, nice.
I feel like it's going to take us probably an hour once a month just to wash it down to get rid of any built-up salt creep.
Yes.
But with the amount of the water that's flowing in there, the salt creep didn't become as much of an issue as I thought it would.
Yeah, great.
We just need to make up some little jump nets so that your shrimp and things stay in the tanks.
Yeah. Obviously, with the price of blood shrimp, we don't want them jumping out and
$290 here in Australia, so you don't want that dried up on the floor in the morning.
Definitely not.
But yeah, it's a work in progress, but it should work very, very well. It'll allow us to have very, very small pico fish like tailspot blennies and coral gobies, but also things like sexy shrimp, anemone shrimp, euphilia shrimp, things that you just lose in a normal situation.
Even in a 40-litre tank, a sexy shrimp disappears.
Yeah.
It's hard to find, particularly when you're trying to net it and get it out for a customer. So things like that will be ideal, and just to make it easy to bag them up.
Definitely.
Dave, has there been any infrastructure changes on the marine side of the store, apart from that innovative invert wall you've got there?
So it's mostly the same. We are using AI blades for all of our coral lighting now.
Yes.
As I said before, just the cost of the unit. So these are 4-foot units or 39-inch units. We retail them for $560.
Yep.
They're 80 watts of power, and they're putting out the same amount of par as 2 $800-900 lights.
Yeah.
So a third of the cost, a third of the power for the same amount of, if not more, par.
Yes.
So for us in our situation, power consumption and cost alone makes them worthwhile, but then having just this little slimline, little black line in your vision rather than big chunky bricks and units and power cords, it just cosmetically adds to the look as well.
And a lack of fans too, which
no
I think
fans,
is a welcome addition for every reef keeper, let alone when you've got, how many fixtures here? You've got 12 blades just on these systems alone.
Yep. So less maintenance on our side of things as well.
Yep.
Fans in humid environments will gather dust, which will turn to mud and just becomes a problem.
Yes.
We are also slowly over time adding a second row, or a third row I should say, of blades to all the coral systems.
Yes.
So we run the grows. The grows put out the more natural light.
Yes.
And they look absolutely incredible. You can have a bluer light, a whiter light. You can really bring out the colours of the coral. But then we're going to add a row of glow to share between both tanks. So you've got, each tank has its own grow, but then the 2 tanks will share a glow. And that just adds just a little bit more colour pop to the coral.
Beautiful.
We don't need to. The par values are enough.
Yes.
But just adding this one extra light doubles our par value.
Wow.
And just adds this little bit of a colour pop to the corals. So it's not a necessity, it's just a quality of life thing. But it should make a big difference just in the visual aesthetics of the corals.
Yeah, and for your, like this end of the store here, this tank here is the higher end corals. And if you can showcase every bit of colour they have, that's obviously going to help get them out of the tanks and into people's homes, and the money you've saved by not running some competing brands of lights, both in upfront cost but also ongoing power, justifies the additional of the, well, I was going to say the third light there, but the third light which is shared across the 2 sides.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
Nice little addition indeed.
And they're controllable, so we can still turn them on and off to try and mimic other people's lighting at home. So you sort of see what you're going to get when you're at home as well, not just best case scenario. What we can find is best case scenario.
Sure.
We will still be using other brand lights on our display tanks.
Yep.
Because they all have their places.
Of course.
Fish looks so incredible under a Philips LED. It's just ridiculous. But for this situation, the slimline look and still having that output and par value works brilliantly for this situation.
And it would probably be fair to say, I mean, I'm only here on Saturdays, but I think I'm right in saying that whether it's a coincidence or whether it's just the way it's worked out, since putting AI blades on your coral systems, they would be by far your most popular LED that you would sell.
Yeah. When you're in this hobby and you see something that seems too cheap to be true, you're always hesitant with it.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
when they first come out, I was the same, and then I started seeing some YouTube reviews and some par tests, and I didn't believe it. I got 1 or 2 of them, I tested them, and now I have like 30 of them. So it is our light of recommendation as well, especially for someone getting into the hobby. You don't have to go and spend $2.5–3 grand on light. You can buy one of these for $500–600, have that working, and if you need more light in the future, you can add more after that.
Add another one, just like you have here. And I know people are adding them as supplements, but people are also starting their tanks off with blades now, as you say.
Perfectly fine for a softy or a basic mixed reef tank for a primary light.
Yep.
And if you want to go pretty heavy into the SBS later, you can grab some radians or something and use them as a supplement on top of that.
Yeah, beautiful. Now, Dave, it would be remiss of me not to take the opportunity while I have you mic'd up before you get off onto much more important things to do in the shop. I wanted to get your opinion on some of your favourite fish and potentially some of your favourite corals that are in store at the moment, and just maybe why they're of interest to you.
Yeah, easy. Let's start with the magnificent foxface. We don't get them too often. We get them as often as we can. These ones are quite large, but white is just a weird colour that you really don't consider when you're getting a reef tank.
Yeah.
But just having a white fish in the tank just breaks everything up really dramatically.
Yes.
And they smash bubble algae. It's not a guarantee, but if they eat 1 or 2 bubble algae, they'll clean your tank out pretty quickly after that.
Yeah, nice.
So they've got that janitorial sort of aspect to them, and there's not much in the world that eats bubble algae.
Very true. In fact, there's almost nothing, particularly in Australia. I mean, I know our friends over in the US and things like that will say you get emerald crabs and that. And
some of the inverts that are around the world are incredible, but we just don't have access
it's not
to them
available here. So for us here, it's either a chemical treatment, a continual manual removement, or you try and find a natural predator. And there's probably been too many circumstances now for it to be a coincidence of the magnificent foxface just eating them and keeping them at bay.
We find anything Red Sea typically is more prone to eating the bubble algae, but it's almost guaranteed that the magnificent foxface will.
Yeah, and as you say, beautiful colours. I mean,
that yellow contrast, the red top, a bit of black in there. And once they settle in, that white just pops.
The white, the yellow, and the fact that I love the way their fins here on the side here are just solid yellow, really contrasting against that white and black there. And that's the colour of these guys in a holding system when they've only been in store for a week or two now. So, as you say, once they've settled in a full-blown reef, they're just going to pop even more.
Fish are always going to look 10 times better at home once they've settled in.
Yeah, no, beautiful fish indeed. Anything else you've got to show us?
So at the moment we probably keep about 70% of our fish as Aussie caught. If it's an Aussie caught fish, we'll prefer that over an import. Less travel time, less stress, that sort of stuff.
For sure.
And they're super hard to get a hold of at the moment just because they're only collected from a couple of companies and those companies haven't been able to lately. We've got a little lineatus in at the moment, nice male.
Yeah, you say little. He's a pretty solid size.
He's a good size.
And he's showing his colours and fins, and again, despite being in a holding system, he's already looking
just
a
crazy splash of colour. That yellow, the purple lines, the face painting.
Yeah,
they're just an absolutely beautiful fish. They're a bit jumpy. There's no secondary purpose to them other than they just look amazing.
No bigger utilitarian purpose than looking beautiful when we're talking reef tanks. And what sort of, you mentioned they're jumpy, but any other sort of care requirements, any other fish they don't play nicely with?
Wrasse in general can be problematic with each other introduced later on, but as long as it's a different family, it should be fine. The only main concern would be shrimp. The shrimp are a natural diet to all wrasse. Being a larger wrasse, it's going to be able to eat larger shrimp. So
it makes sense.
Just cautious in that regard. But yeah, they're on average extremely peaceful, just active 24/7, swimming around the tank, not 24/7, but active swimming around the tank, and that brings the other fish out of their shell as well. They sort of, you'll see this guy sort of moves a bit, and then the emperor follows him, and they sort of,
That's really amplified in a holding tank too. I know if you have one fish in a holding system that's a bit shy and a bit jumpy, it makes every other fish in the system shy and jumpy. And you see this tank is active as anything, and probably has a part to do with that beautiful wrasse in there, keeping them all nice and active.
And they know I mean food. If we move on, we've got the nice big Aussie Regal. So very similar coloration to your Red Sea Regal that everyone wants, minus the yellow belly there. But when you've got colours this strong, this vibrant, there's no need. The imported Regals, they're hit and miss whether they're going to eat properly or not. These guys eat within 24 hours.
Yeah, beautiful.
Another good splash of colour, good chunky, thick fish. Not coral safe, no matter what the internet tells you, it'll happen. It might take 3 weeks, it might take 3 years, but as soon as they eat a coral, they'll get the taste and they'll continue eating coral.
Just get the taste for it.
And that generally happens when a coral's stung by another coral, they take advantage of the rotten flesh, and they get that taste. But again, just a huge splash of colour for your tank.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with the colours and markings on a Regal, whether it's a Red Sea or Aussie. Obviously, the Aussie one doesn't have the same colours on the belly, but if it's eating and it's...
the colours on the body are just as bright, if not brighter.
Yeah, no, beautiful fish.
All right, also in this tank, we've got a nice large male isosceles wrasse, or pintail wrasse.
Isosceles, I've never heard the official name, but yeah, pintail.
Pintail. Again, just like the lineatus, just the striking colour, the stripes, the visual aesthetic to them is incredible.
Beautiful.
This guy stays a lot smaller than the lineatus though. This guy being close enough to full-sized.
Yes.
Would say the length of a credit card.
Yep.
Maybe a touch longer. But yeah, you get them into a reef tank and those colours just pop. You can see the lines, the orange contrast. And when the male gets into some breeding behaviour, that top fin just flashes some pretty
really
crazy
pops.
colours. A couple of other honourable mentions on this side. We've got a massive chisel tooth wrasse down here.
Yeah, this guy's an absolute beast. He's a solid size unit. It's difficult to give you an idea of his size on camera, but when you compare, that's a massive, absolutely gigantic orange shoulder tang in there, and yeah, you can see the size of these mature lipsticks in there with him, and even the clown tang's not a juvenile, and this wrasse dwarfs them.
I love that checkerboard scale, arowana-like scales to them.
Now, I'm assuming this guy, at a size like that, he cannot be reef safe.
No, he's not likely to go and decimate everything, but he'll get a few corals of choice and he'll do damage to them.
Yeah, right. And even just, I imagine from the size of him, he's just going to burrow about and just sort of upset things a bit when they get that big, at least.
And typically with an SBS tank, for example, they'll just use those teeth to just scratch off like patches of acro at a time.
Crazy. Now, I think you've got something up here equally as non-reef safe, but equally as cool.
Well, these guys are actually reef safe.
Yeah, nice.
So you got the yellow leaf fish. It's completely reef safe, but he will eat anything that fits in his mouth. Thankfully, it is quite a small mouth. And he'll just sit there as part of the aquascape and bounce back and forth to mimic some leaf material in the ocean, waiting for a little fish to try and hide in him, and he'll take advantage of that and eat that.
Put a dance on and eat him.
Yep. And we've also got the yellow and purple venustus there as well. Don't see too many of those these days.
Venustus is definitely a beautiful fish. Being an angel, I imagine it's sort of reef safe with caution.
Just like Prius, it's probably going to nip here and there,
Yep.
but if you get lucky, it'll just nip here and there. It won't actually do any large amount of damage.
Yes.
But that is always the risk. You've got to warrant that risk.
Being an angel, it can do anything. I can't go past this leaf fish.
Yep.
You mentioned that he'll eat anything that fits in his mouth, and his mouth's quite small. What sort of size fish would be in danger?
A juvenile clownfish would be pushing it, but
Yep.
an adult clownfish would be perfectly fine.
Yeah, nice. And is he eating prepared foods currently, or do you need to give him live foods?
We start off with live foods, but we transition them from live food to frozen food pretty quickly. And yeah, he's eating frozen small fish.
Okay.
bits of lance fish, things like that, even little
right.
chunks of prawn. But to get to that, we usually have to feed live food for a few days and then dance some stuff in front of his nose to entice that reaction.
Just to make him think it's alive.
And once he knows that it's food, then it's
Transition's done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic.
I also love their eyes are almost holographic looking. They're just...
Yeah, they have this very horror film-esque sort of reflection to the eyes that is quite... it's cool, but also disconcerting.
If we pop over this side, what do we got? So we've got two massive gem tanks here at the moment. They're close to full size, they're thick, they're established, they need a new home, so if someone wants to come and buy the pair, that'd be great. And then you got the massive Australian stripey. We like to keep this guy here because people don't realise just how big they get. And the juveniles are incredible at eating aptasia, but once they get to a certain size, they transition onto coral instead.
They do, and frustratingly, they do go from like 10-cent coin to this size far too quickly.
Very quickly.
You sort of think you're going to get a few years out of them, but in reality, a few months have passed. And
there must be a lot of protein in aptasia. A fish that we don't get too often. So as a shop, we have access to pages and pages of fish, and we have a duty of care to make sure that we're selling the correct fish to the correct person with the correct tank.
For sure.
And
it is livestock you're dealing with after all.
Definitely. It's live animals, and people don't always value them as that. Thankfully, the marine world's a bit more expensive, so it does become more so than freshwater. But we try to make sure we're doing the right thing by the customer and by the fish. But every now and then we do make a pretty stupid purchase. So in this tank at the moment, we have the juvenile bicolour parrotfish. They're a pretty fish. It's going to get pretty massive. It's going to destroy every coral it's ever with.
Okay.
But we do have some customers that have fish-only tanks that this would suit. So it's a silly purchase for us, but it's educated as well. So we're going to make sure it goes to the correct home. But it does end up creating us a lot of work where every day we have 20 people that want that fish, and we have to tell all 20 of them that it's not suited to them and that they don't want to buy it.
It's going to get big.
And that they don't want to give us their money for that just to end up wiping out their tank.
Yeah, for sure. Now tell me, is this true, or is this just a rumour that I've heard and I've been sold a lie that sand is made from coral, parrotfish eating coral and then pooping out sand? Is that correct?
So sand is essentially broken up coral skeletons, and it comes from a number of places, and one of the primary places is parrotfish.
From them just munching the coral, or from them actually eating it and passing it?
I don't know 100% about the passing, but I would assume it would be both.
Yeah, right. Well, there you go. There could be some truth to the rumour.
Another oddity that we have is the gold nugget wrasse. You can see the male just there, and female at the front.
Tell me, why are these guys called gold nuggets when...
I absolutely have no idea whatsoever.
There's very little gold and very little nugget.
They're a Western Australian species. They come out of Karratha, I believe, and they're just unusual. They've got pretty cool medieval looking patterns. So it's almost like a halfway to a dragon wrasse without being destructive and aggressive. And they've been super peaceful for us.
Fantastic. And you've got a pair of them. Obviously, they're happy paired up.
There's a trio in there at the moment. We've got two boys and a girl. But yeah, the boy and the girl have paired up fairly well. The little male's slightly an outsider, but they get along most of the time.
There's always a third wheel.
Exactly. Another little guy here. We've got this little frogfish. This guy has been with us long enough now that he will feed from our fingers. And he'll take a little bit of pellet, he'll take a bit of frozen food, he'll take pretty much anything you throw in there, even if it's way too big to fit in his mouth.
He's grown since he's been here too.
He's probably twice the size now, yeah.
I know he spends a lot of his time hiding out in that pipe there, but last time I saw him come out, he was nowhere near that size.
All right, and lastly, as I said before, we primarily get Australian caught fish where we can. They're just much healthier fish, less hands, less travel time, less stress. And something that we get from Australian waters when we can, although it's hard to get small ones, is the copper band butterfly. They have a really bad sort of reputation because a lot of the time when they starve, it takes a lot to get them back from that. So even if they start eating again, the damage is done and they just can't recover correctly from it. So by getting them from Australia, they're not starving when we get them. They usually eat within a day or so, and we can put the weight back on them very quickly. At home, you want to make sure your tank is appropriate for them, and they're not for everyone. They are still a trickier fish to keep long term.
sure.
You need to make sure they're eating, and they're a very timid fish. They don't play in amongst the column with everyone else. They'll sort of hang around the back and get some food when they're up to it. But just by adding a bit of extra frozen food to make an absolute mess of your phosphates and nitrates.
This is why you got that big filter skid out there.
Exactly. Just gives them an opportunity to graze in their own time. So after a couple of days, these guys have only been here for a few days, but after a couple of days, they'll all be in the water column feeding properly. But again, there's too much activity here from the anthea that they're sort of just hanging back. Once the anthea get their fill, they'll nick off, and the copper bands will be more inclined to get in there and eat properly.
I mean, there's one definitely champion that's already actively searching the food. The other three are definitely intimidated by the movement.
You can see the movement alone has them huddled up in the corner.
For sure.
But we just feed ample amount of food that we have an absolute mess on the floor, about a week's worth every day. And that allows, in their own time, any of the sensitive fish, the mandarins, leopard wrasse, things like that, things that are usually a bit trickier to eat, it just gives them time to be able to graze in their own time and fill their bellies up.
That's nice. And of course, it gives Blake something to do, you know, he's got to have tanks to clean.
Got to clean 7 hours a day, every day.
Now, Dave, tell us about some of the corals you've got in. I know you've got another shipment that you're about to jump in the van and go off and pick up and unpack for even more stock for your customers for the weekend.
Typical life of owning a shop. The plane's 6 hours late and ruins my whole day, but it is what it is.
But you do have some pretty nice coral stock in at the moment, and before you do jump in that van and run off, I did want to get your opinion on anything just a little bit different or something different that you're doing in store for your customers.
Not really different as such, but every now and then we like to buy bulk hammers. These are branching hammers, so they're much easier to separate. And what we'll do is we'll buy bulk and we'll frag them up. So rather than having to buy a large colony for $400, you can buy the single heads for $35, $60, whatever it ends up being.
Yeah.
So by the end of the day, this whole tank here will be $60 hammers. Some of the cheaper ones will be multiple heads. Some of the more expensive ones will be single heads, like the Canary, for example. But it just allows it to be a bit more cost effective, and most people don't want a basketball sized coral in their tank. They want a tennis ball size, or 5 tennis ball sized corals in their tank. So this allows you to mix and match a few different coloured heads to make a bit of a hammer garden at a much better price than buying large colonies.
It gives you that ability, yeah. If you do have the big tank and you do want 5, 6 heads, you can still buy 5, 6 heads, either of the same colour or of a variety of colours to get an instant garden. But if you do have a smaller tank, or to be fair, in the modern day cost of living, a smaller budget, you can still get yourself a beautiful Euphilia, get it in your tank and watch it grow. And these branching hammers, super easy to frag.
Yep.
There's lots of room between the flesh.
You can literally snap them with your fingers if you want to, but we'll take them out the back. We'll chuck them through the bandsaw. We'll put them all on frag plugs, just like these guys here, just so that they're held up right and displayed right. We'll inspect the skeletons for any nasties and things while we're there, give them a quick dip, and tomorrow morning they should start opening up and looking pretty.
And these are this 9 here are some that Blake did yesterday, and you can see that like 14 hours later they are open and enjoying life and ready to go to their new tanks.
Definitely, give it a couple of weeks and they'll be opened even more, but just within the first 24 hours they're back to normal. So
beautiful.
All right, one of my favourite corals gets overlooked by everyone. I have no idea why. They're cheap and affordable unless it's a Space Invader, but the Pectinia coral, super easy to care for, grows in most environments, gets along with most corals. When you move them, they don't really do much, and then after a month or two, like a high-end Zoa, then they start just taking off. You get that contrast, you get the darker greens, the purples, bit of yellow as it gets, as the skin thins out on the skeleton. Just an absolutely incredible piece at a ridiculously cheap price tag for what they are.
And you say apart from Space Invader, but I mean this is in Australia, we only have Australian collected corals, but that has got to be as close to an Aussie Space Invader as you get. There's greens, there's yellows.
Definitely yellows, and there's 3 or 4 different shades of green in there. You got some purple and some brown just to make the yellow and green pop. They work. They're super easy to care for. If they do get too big, they're easy to frag. Super versatile coral.
Beautiful. And you say that not super expensive. That obviously being a fairly high-end Aussie Pectinia.
Yeah.
What sort of price range is that one sitting at?
$60.
$60 Australian, yeah. For a
pretty typical
very nice
example
of a Aussie Pectinia that, as you say, does not get the attention it deserves.
Exactly. Another coral in the same sort of boat is your turbinaria. They've just been reclassified, so I don't know what they're called now. But it's essentially a Monty cap that is controllable. It's not going to grow out of control and become a weed. It grows as one big disc, and the large polyps there, when the flow's on an oscillation, it just looks incredible.
These are a nice, smaller size turbinaria too. The last few I've seen have been probably, you know, palm size, but these are a nice, smaller size and still looking super happy and healthy.
A bit bigger than a bottle cap, and you have that the bright green colour, but also the movement of the polyps.
Yeah, best of both worlds.
All right, another coral we get. These are, again, we get these from Western Australia. It's the Western Australian gold frog spawn. For me, I'm a bit old school. I classify them as a Euphyllia cristata or grape coral, grape Euphyllia, but sometime in the 90s or 2000s, they decided that was no longer a thing. And sometimes more recently, hammers and frog spawns are no longer Euphyllia, they're now Fimbrophilia. So, I don't know.
One thing that can be certain that
You
will
can
never
never
change is
keep
that
up with the naming schedules of things.
the reefing classifications will always change.
A Framma, which is now just a hybrid hammer frog spawn, used to be Fimbriata or Fimbrophilia. Now Fimbrophilia is the entire species classification. But yeah, out of Western Australia, we get these large, thick branches with these large nodules on them.
Yeah, and got some serious colour on them too.
You get some that just have this absolutely stunning gold, green fades, and something that's unique to the Western Australian versions are that they basically grow almost like a jelly bean hammer. So that's just a one large single head.
Yeah, right.
And instead of being a branching or a maze type, so most of the frog spawns you find in the hobby are a maze type frog spawn. They grow in zigzag shape.
Yes.
These just grow in one big circle, and as the circle gets too big, they pinch in and split off into two larger circles.
Yeah, right.
So for me, grape coral or cristata, but yeah, Western Australian frog spawn.
Either way, beautiful coral.
Stunning
and
coral, and just the contrast on them alone is incredible.
Yeah, very nice. And whilst being a higher end piece, we're not talking holy grail torch prices. We're talking, you know, a couple $100.
So you can get them for as little as 100, 120 bucks. These guys here are quite large with quite a lot of yellow, so we're looking at 300 Australian dollars. But when you've got a holy grail that's a quarter of the size for $1,500,
it puts it into perspective.
There's a bit of perspective there.
Yeah, nice one.
Lucky last, we got the Symphilia wilsoni. It's a bit of a Australian specialty. It's only found in Western Australia. The rainbows, as they call them, come from a cooler water, and oftentimes they'll collect them in cooler water and they'll bring them up over weeks or months into warmer water. And just the colours absolutely pop. The shape is like nothing else. They grow in next to no light. They grow in almost any condition you put them in. And yeah, you think a rainbow acan looks nice, you get a really nice rainbow wilsoni and it'll just tear shreds over it. It's incredible.
It has to be one of the few corals out there that collectors and wholesalers have to put a huge amount of work
and effort into. And
that acclimation process means they have to hold them for quite a long period of time. And not just hold them and keep them alive, but slowly adjust conditions.
And not only that, just to collect them, they have to go so far out of their way. Most of the wholesalers are set up shop in tropical environments where they can collect tropical animals.
Yes.
So to go and find a subtropical animal, it's usually a pretty big expedition to go out there, make it worth their time and effort to then put months into keeping them before reselling them. So it's something that we're very lucky to be able to get access to.
And a coral that I believe is really only found in Western Australia.
Pretty confident it's only Western Australia, and I don't think they've found them anywhere else in the world just yet.
Yeah, so something that we have access to that is incredibly unique, has a huge diverse range of colours, super easy to care for, not crazy expensive when you consider the colours and patterns they have on them.
And the amount of work that goes into them.
Exactly, yeah. It's a coral that I think does not get enough recognition here in Australia. I know that in certain parts of the world that people absolutely love them, but here in Australia we sort of just think they're a bit of a funny looking acan and look the other way when it's truly something unique. All right, so as Dave has to rush off to get yet more stock for this weekend's trade, I thought I would give you the full tour of all of the fish and coral that is in currently, although bear in mind there will be more added to it when Dave returns. Now, this first system here, he has at a ridiculous price, $25 each or 3 for 60, 10 for 150. This is Australian dollars, and whilst these are some smaller frags and things, check this out. There are Recordia frags in here, some really nice Rhodactis and morphs as well, but Recordias in there for that low price, and you can't go too wrong with Recordias at that price. Moving across to the other side where there are $35 pieces in here, there's just a nice general assortment of some smaller, more common corals and a few frags along the top there. Various Samacoras, Blastos, some Zoas, even some Goni frags in there at that price, which is really pretty good buying if you ask me. Coming over the other side here, this is the $60 side, or as you can see, 3 for 150 on both of the tanks on this side here. And along the top here, there are some nice pieces here. A nice Pectinia, in fact, a couple of Pectinias, just like the ones Dave talked about before in here. There's some organ pipe corals, one of these Zoa custom rocks that Blake has put together, which was some of the bulk Zoas the team have been looking to move on. They've glued them onto some rock to give you an instant scape for those looking for that super simple to keep coral system. Now, along the bottom there, you can see lots of very nice Lobophilia in there. And then here are some more of those larger Zoa rocks there. Now, sure, they've got basic Zoas on them, but at that sort of price, you get yourself an aquascape with corals on it, ready to go. Coming across here, you can see some nice little trackies, nice little scollies, moving into some bouncing Rhodactis, a nice sized Turbinaria there. That one is a little bit larger than the ones Dave talked about previously, but still only $60, which is quite a good buy. Along the top there, there's some nice Chalice and more Turbinarias, a couple of sun corals, including a black sun coral, some nice, let's have a look, varieties, even some, some regular sun corals in there. So a nice little assortment of corals at that cheaper price point. When we come over here, yes, this is where the hammers are that Blake is furiously soaring away at. We have had a number of customers over the last number of months say that they want small, affordable hammers. We got what we could in, but Blake is going to make it possible so that he's going to get to work fragging all of these up. And you've already saw him in action, and by the time the doors open today, Blake will have these all sawn up into either single heads, some of them will be double heads, some of them will be triple heads, depending sort of on the color combinations. You can see some of the canaries there, a little bit brighter and do attract a little bit more of a price tag, but some of those reverses and model reverses, very nice indeed, and gives you the ability to buy in various size chunks. You can see there are some morphs in here. These are going at 15 a polyp, and you can pick and mix from some of the colors there. For those just looking for that neon bulletproof corals, there are some options there. And then when you come across here, you've got a nice assortment of leathers here, and these have been moving very much lately. A lot of people chasing soft corals. They're easy to care for, they're bright. They have great colors, they flow nicely, and also in that category is these Duncans along the top here, and Dave's got himself heaps of Duncans to pick from here. I wonder if they might get the chop eventually too, if the big pieces don't sell. But along the top there, there's some star polyps and a couple more gonies, but we'll swing on over the other side. Dave's sort of pushed some of these corals around a little bit because he is expecting even more in the next hour or so, but having a look along the top here, you can see there are some nice Chalice, some nice Lobos, Patchies, nice little Rhodactis rock up there, some Acans, some maize corals, nice little assortment indeed. And then along the base here, you've got some of those larger LPS pieces, so some nice Symphilias, some nice Lobos, some bright color combinations there, and some nice patterns as well. In fact, some of those have got a trio or more colors on them, which is always nice when you get a coral contrasting that much. I quite like this Blasto, it's fairly unique. Maybe not the brightest Blasto under the sun, but just not a color combination you see very often. And then over on this side of the system is where the gigantic leathers are. And I've got to say there are some nice varieties in here. Some of these Cinularias are a little bit different. I quite like these Chalice in here. These are big pieces, very bright growth rim on them, and there's a nice gold Chalice to the side there as well. Here are some of the hammer frags and Goni frags that Blake's been working on. There's some nice button scollies in there, and some of these monster Zoa rocks in there. There's some of the larger pieces for those looking for those instant scapes. But panning on over to the other side here, and again, Dave is moving pieces around, getting ready for the new delivery, but you can see some of the torches in here. These are freshly delivered. These hulks are very nice indeed. Some nice golds in there. There's There's some Zoas as well, and a few more of your varieties of torches there. The golds are looking a little pale at the moment, but I'm sure they will colour up in the aquarium quite nicely. Here's the turbinarias that Dave was talking about, and I have to agree with him. They're beautiful. Much like this pectinia here that Dave mentioned, you can see a heap of yellow on that piece, which makes it quite a standout for sure. Now across to the SBS side, the SBS is $60 each or $3 for 150. These pieces have been here a couple of weeks now, so they are probably at their worst coloration. They will bounce back once they've settled in, like this yellow one is here. But wild SBS, they tend to come in very bright, they lose a bit of color, and then they bounce back once they settle into aquarium life. So you can expect that these guys will pick up a little bit more color in the weeks to come, but even still, there's some really nice pieces in here. Quite like the growth pattern, the polyp extension, and just some of the variety he has in, which is a good assortment of pieces that you don't always see. And I talk about them coloring up, they're still bright as anything. Heading on over this side here, there is heaps of nice euphilia in this system, from greens and models, reverses, yellows. Heading down the base here, we can see some really nice acans. This beautiful glittergony, which is just glittering away like mad. It's so bright, and it's got blue glitters on the tips, yellow glitters through the stems. Stunning piece. There's some torch. Here's those Wilsoni that Dave talked about before. Really unique pieces to Australia, and they've got such a splash of colour through them. And when you know the effort that's been put into them to get them to that state where they can go into our tropical temperature aquariums, it's super nice. You see that nice bright red cushion there, absolutely burning the lens of the camera. And if we try to get the colors of these hammers across the top now, you can see this gold here is an absolute beauty. Some nice mottled yellows there. The reverse at the back's quite bright. In fact, a number of the golds in there are quite bright indeed. And then across to the final coral system, you will find some beautiful pieces in here. There are clams, some really nice assortment of clams, from your high-end blues to some of your less bright color. Well, they're not less bright, but just not blue. You got some more browns and cream-colored clams there at much more affordable prices. Speaking of bright, there's some Trachyphilias there that absolutely glow. In fact, you'd think they glow in the dark. There is a really nice high-end scully there. And then we come across to these beautiful gold frog spawns, or I don't know, you can call them whatever you want. The the classification of these is going to change, but you can see they're all the same price. Probably the one on the front right's the brightest there, but it's probably also the smallest. So you can pick for color, or you can pick for size. Along the top here, there are some beautiful torches, including some solid Hulk greens, some golds, of course a Holy Grail as well. Both the Holy Grail torch and what I've been calling the Holy Grail hammer there. There's some absolutely stunning pieces indeed. In fact, I'll give you the opportunity to have a look at this tank under the DSLR right now. Now, firstly, I should apologize for how close some of these corals are at the start of this tank. They are huge pieces, and they're on the top shelf in this system. And if I get the DSLR out, I have to use the top-down tube, and this is just about as far away from these corals as I can get. But you can see it is well worth the coral slap to the face, because some of the colors on these pieces are ridiculous. Look at this hammer here with the bright yellow stems, rose gold anchors, just a stunning piece. And then if we move down from that, you get to this green and gold hammer. I've not seen many like this before. It's a true Holy Grail Aussie hammer, and it's a showpiece and a half, and has been sitting at Dave's shop for so long. I have no idea why it hasn't found a home yet. But there is equally some more beautiful LPS in this system. Have a look at the color of these green torches, solid green. And then we roll down to a casual Holy Grail, which is just settling in. It has just come out of the bag, but you can see plenty of green and gold on each of the torch stems there. Stunning piece. And then we move across to some solid greens here. These Hulks are gorgeous. A little bit of a variation, a little bit of a green and gold at the top there, and then this one down here, the bottom right, is just like a toxic green. It's almost like a highlighter, that one, just ridiculous. Down onto the base, you can see these gorgeous gold frog spawns that Dave spoke about before. Look at the color of that one in the bottom right there. Stunning piece for $300 Australian. That maroni browny color on the stems really contrasts the gold and the blue and the green on the tips, and just makes them a true showpiece. But there's even more in here. Space Invader Pectinia. Have a look at the gold coming through on this scully here. Beautiful piece indeed. You get to these, well, there's that nice chalice that equally has been sitting at Dave's shop for a very long time, just growing out, which is a little bit of a bonus side effect, I guess. onto some top-end Trachophilia here, and there's a great assortment from rainbows to contrasty colors to just flat out bright, like this green guy here, absolutely ridiculous. And then we get over to the clams, and this perspective with the clams really shows just how different they are. You've got that pattern on that one there, that sort of stripy pattern, over to the splotchy pattern on this one, which to be fair is probably a brown clam, but is still beautiful. And then you get across to that electric blue. Stunning piece indeed. Now, it would be poor form of me just to show you the corals. Dave has some beautiful fish in, like this pair of longfin clowns. You can see they have absolutely long fins, and they are definitely a pair swimming along very happily together. But we'll go through each of the systems and just go over any of the fish that Dave may have missed. You can see in here there are those gorgeous copper bands. I quite like this little juvenile powder blue there. He is so small when you see how compared to like the size of the anthias in this system. He gets overlooked quite a bit, but I'm sure he will find a new home soon enough. Pretty little wrasse there in the background, and I believe they're coral sea anthias in there as well. Up here there's a sunburst anthea, and then we come down to some pretty jumpy fish at this stage, but a pair of very small, I shouldn't say pair. There is two juvenile tangs in here, from the powder brown to a I think it's a Thompson tang in there, and he's like the size of a baby chromis at the moment, so super small, super cute, will get big. We've got some seahorse of various breeds in at the moment, from barber eyes, cooters, and others in there. Nice Naoki wrasse swimming around with all of the assessors in there. Naoki's always a beautiful fish, that red and yellow with a little white line between them. Very, very bright indeed. Coming across to a Valentini puffer. This dude in there, he's a bit of a menace, but a cool fish nonetheless. Coming across here, we've got this sailfin cardinal, which I always think looks like a freshwater fish, but apparently he's a nighttime predator. And speaking of predators, in there is that frog fish that we saw before. He's now eating prepared foods, which is super, super cool. Now, up here we do have those gold nugget wrasse that Dave spoke about, and there's also coral beauty angels in there. Looks like a bristletooth, long-nosed butterfly. Good assortment of fish available in there. But yeah, those gold nugget wrasse, I have no idea where they get that name from. There's nothing gold nugget about them at all, but still an interesting fish nonetheless. Over into this system, there's some yellow line cardinals. There's a beautiful Desjardini sailfin you can see there. Another coral beauty. There is that parrotfish that Dave spoke about. Also a nice wrasse up the top there. In fact, a couple of nice wrasse in this system for the wrasse enthusiasts out there. Down into this system, there is a absolute plethora of orange shoulder tangs in here in various stages of maturization, if that's even a word. But you can see there's some that are yellow that have almost no orange shoulder on them, and this guy here that's sort of half grey, and the orange is definitely starting to come through. Super cool indeed. Looks like a Heraldi or maybe a Woodheady angel in there as well. I know Dave does have both of those varieties in at the moment. Over here to some rabbits, and got some nice barred rabbit fish in there, nice hogfish in there, keeping things honest too. He's a pretty feisty lad at the moment, so he's just keeping all of those rabbits honest, which is fair enough. He's outnumbered in there. Heading up here, you got, whoa, we'll have a look at the size of that triggerfish in there. We spoke about the size of that Australian stripey, but this trigger, what a dude. A nice big tang in there, nice big angel in there, big wrasse in with him. This is a big boy tank in here. There's some solid units in there, and you can see that trigger is fired up. Coming across here, we do have the gem tangs. This one is probably the pick of the two, I would say, but he's a little skittish when I put the camera in front of him. I do love this guy down here, though, the red sand perch. I have a sand perch in my Dream Reef tank, and I absolutely love him. He is like a lawnmower blenny on steroids, just with his personality. Down here is the harlequin tusk. This guy is the biggest sook. He always hides in the corner there. You see the nice massive chonk of a gem tang there. But that harlequin tusk always hides when I get the camera, and then has picked on a couple of fish that we put in this system. Not this guy though. The dog-faced puffer is an absolute dude. He always puts this little dance on when he thinks I'm going to feed him, and I'm pretty sure he'd like to feed on my fingers, so I make sure I keep my fingers out of that tank. Heading up here, you can see some collector urchins doing what they do, and have a look at, well actually have a look at this collector urchin. You cannot see him at all, covered in zoas, but have a look at this abalone on the move there. I don't think I knew abalones moved that fast. He is an absolute speedster. And now down along the base here, there's a few different mini maxis. There's also a sea apple here for those who have realistically a dedicated system for it. Some nice bubble tips there. There's some more of those zoas that the collector urchins are cleaning up. Plenty of lionfish in of all sorts of different varieties. Check out this serpent star. This guy moves around at a rapid pace too. You know, I think he's actually been trying to catch some fish, but the lionfish aren't having any of it, of course. But plenty of interesting things happening in that tank. Down here you can see some macroalgae from ketos to caulerpas there, all sorts of varieties. You got a hemprechi anemone in there, only 60 bucks. That guy will make you feel like your hand is on fire if you touch him, so don't touch him. Hopefully if someone does want to buy that, I might get Blake to bag that one up, because I value the feelings in my hand. Here's that gigantic wrasse, and look at the orange shoulder, clown tang, white cheek, lipsticks, just some big fish in that system there, and some really pretty ones, I must say so myself. Up here you can see a nice gold rim. There's a Watanabe angel pair by the looks, male and female there. Let's have a look. Yeah, we've got Watanabe angel pair, quite nicely priced. You can see the yellow leaf at 300 as well. Pretty cool addition for someone looking to add something just a bit different to their tank. Can't sadly doesn't have a splash of color. He's considerably cheaper than a yellow tang at the moment, and I would say probably about 100 times as cool as a yellow tang, but I may be slightly biased. Moving on to this system here, there's lyre-tail anthias in there. Looks like we've got plenty of females. There's at least one male there. There could be a couple more males in the system, but the males do tend to get snapped up fairly quickly, I think due to the coloration they have. Down here you can see some blue-green chromis, bicolor anthias, and check this out, a nice juvenile Atlantic blue tang. Now, I've got a big Atlantic blue tang in my system, and yeah, he's a fair bit bigger than that dude, but he has already started to mature. You can see he's got the blue coloration. When they're really juvenile, they are completely yellow. Nice wrasse down here. Looks like that's the pintail. He wouldn't go out and swim around nicely like that for me before when I had the DSLR out, but them's the breaks of filming livestock. Can't work with children or animals, they say. Up here you can see a nice gold rim, a good harem of pyramid butterflies in there, some nice anthias, in fact, sorry, not anthias, wrasse, the wrasse keeping the dartfish in check. And over here, have a look at these chromis here, I think we're calling them lyre-tail chromis with this black outline. They're just that little bit different from your blue-greens, and certainly interesting, that's for sure. There's some basic clowns in there. You got a mimic, you got heraldi angel, I believe that one is, which is basically the lemon peel without the blue around the eyes. I'm slowly learning my angels, but looks like some lawnmowers, some blue tangs as well. In here you've got some glass cardinals, which are often considered cannon fodder with any sort of predator, so be mindful of that. Here are some baby stripies. You can see how quick and agile they are and how much smaller they are than that big monster. But speaking of small, have a look in this system. You've got baby taminis, you've got baby blue tangs. Those taminis are tiny. The blue tangs are just having a little bit of argy-bargy. Got some stormtrooper clowns there, doing everything that you would want clowns to do. Up into this system, you've got barrier reef chromis. You see, there's another one of those beautiful wrasse. Yes, the pintail wrasse there. Fire goby in the background. Again, the pintail wrasses come right up to the glass when I don't have the DSLR in my hand, but so be it. You can see that gorgeous regal angel there. Dave actually has 2 of these in store at the moment, which is hard to believe, but he does. And then over here, we've got the big emperor angel. You've got the threadfin cardinal there, big beast. You've got a couple more orange shoulders, believe it or not. Some gorgeous wrasse. You've got Scots wrasse, you've got bird nose wrasse. Looks like a pearl scale angel there, bicolor angel. Beautiful fish indeed. That lineatus that we had a look at before, stunning fish, and very active. A good mature sized tamini there as well. Almost through our fish systems, you can see down to some juvenile sailfins and a gorgeous little juvenile trigger. He's going to get big, but you can see he's already feisty, so he'll definitely match, his size will match his personality in no time flat. And you can see there's even more. There's lion bristletooth, there's Bahrain tangs there, juveniles, even got some beautiful frostbite clowns there, so heaps and heaps of fish. Hard to believe Dave has gone to the airport to get even more stock, which is crazy. You've got a fangtooth blenny here. You can see an arc eye hawkfish there, I believe that is. Yellow or golden head sleeper gobies there. I think they're Cooper eye anthias in there. And then up to the final system here, where those beautiful, magnificent fox face that are a pretty solid bet at eating bubble algae in your tank. You've also got some fusiliers in there, which are essentially a massive chromis that you see schooling in the wild. And then over onto the newly set up invert wall for the marines here, you can see that flame sculpt, something a bit different. You got the blood shrimp up there. I believe this is a saffron shrimp next to it here. Definitely a different little dude. Plenty of hermit crabs. Looks like a cowrie snail there as well. So Dave has got in a ridiculous amount of stock, and I definitely encourage you all to come on in store today, and I look forward to serving you all then. Alright guys, there you have it. That was the update of Deer Park Aquarium, both the infrastructure that's happened and about to happen, and of course the opportunity to chat to Dave, the store owner there, about his favourite fish and corals in stock right now, which when you consider how many boxes of stock this gentleman sees each and every week, I'm always curious to know which fish and which corals Dave thinks are the best at the moment, because, well, he just sees so much stock. So if something grabs his eye, it's generally worth taking a second look at. Now, you may have noticed I mentioned a couple times in the video there that the Deer Park new store, the one that we went through today, is approaching the 1-year birthday mark. And whilst Dave didn't really get the opportunity to do a grand opening special because, well, the man was flat out moving from one store to another store, he is very keen to do a first birthday celebration, and it's about a month away and plans have just started to take shape. So if you are in the Melbourne region, be sure to take note on the Deer Park Aquarium Facebook page, I'll spit that out eventually, where you will find more information about this upcoming event. There will be some good deals, there will be various people from the industry there, there'll be some free food, some free entertainment, and of course a fantastic social activity, which I always love. So if you are in the Melbourne or Victoria region, book that in your calendar. Be sure to take note on the Deer Park Aquarium Facebook page. And also, if you're like me and you don't mind a cheap and quick flight interstate, head on over from anywhere in Australia, or if you're really keen, internationally, book that date in your calendar and head on down to Deer Park Aquarium. You know I'll personally be there, and of course there'll be heaps and heaps of other people there with lots of good deals and lots of fun to be had. So be sure to jump on down and support your local fish shop that way. Now, I don't have anything else to say. I hope you enjoyed this style of video. Rather than just doing a shop tour, I thought I'd grab the opportunity to put a microphone on Dave and just get his opinion on what's happening in store and what things grabbed his eye. I do want to give a massive shout out to my channel members on screen here. This list grows each and every week, which is truly humbling. These guys on screen here do chip in a couple of dollars each and every month to make these videos possible, and I really humbly appreciate the support. Now, it's not just channel members chipping in a couple of dollars. There are over 30,000 subscribers to this channel who don't spend a single cent at all. All they have to do is click that subscribe button in the bottom corner, and that tells the YouTube algorithm that this content's good and it should recommend it to other people, which helps immensely. So if you are one of the about 35 to 40% of people that watch my videos who are yet to subscribe, please consider doing so. It takes 2 seconds in time, it costs no money whatsoever. You'll find the button down in that bottom corner, and if you click the bell notification, that will give you a reminder when my next video is coming out, which hopefully you'll enjoy watching as well. Anyway guys, I will leave you with it. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, stay safe, keep reefing. Cheers, bye.